This is number 6 out of the independent practice of the lesson midpoint and distance formula that the students are working on. And when they are working on this, they have to use their answer out of number 5. It says, plot the Intimidator roller coaster. So they had to plot or sketch a plot of, actually on the map on the first page of this independent practice, they plot the Intimidator roller coaster, which is ended up being at -3, -3. So their answer may come out wrong, but they would get partial credit if they based this answer off of a previous answer that was incorrect. -3, -3 is where the Intimidator is at, the roller coaster. There is a restroom at -20, which is halfway between the Intimidator and a new carnival ride that will be built called the Spider. So the midpoint is at -20. And Spider is at that new point that you don't know, and that's basically going to be that XY coordinate, X1, Y1, that other endpoint, trying to find that missing endpoint again. So again, you're going to set up two different parts of the midpoint formula and kind of break it apart. I think it's easier to look at the X coordinate and then the Y coordinate separately. So I can see that if I add, this is one of the, we'll just call that 2 since I already called the other one 0.1. That was missing, so this is one endpoint, so it's -3 plus the one that's missing, x1, divided by 2, should equal the x coordinate of the midpoint, which is -2. Well, what number divided by 2 is -2? And that would be -4. So what number would x be to be -4? It should be -1. But we'll go ahead and solve that algebraically. Multiply times 2. Most of the students are more successful by checking it with mental math before they at least apply the algebra, just because they get mixed up with all the steps. So -3 plus x equals -4. And again, we are correct that that missing number would be -1. And then you're trying to find the y coordinate of the midpoint, of the endpoint. So that x1 was -1. And the y1, the y coordinate of the endpoint for where the spider would be located at on the map, would be the midpoint of the y coordinate is -3 for the y coordinate from the Intimidator, plus the one that's missing divided by 2 should equal 0. Well, what expression divided by 2 would be 0? Well, the answer would be 0. So -3 plus what number is 0? Would be +3. And so if we go ahead and multiply that times 2, that would be 0, -3 plus y1 equals 0. And so that would be +3. And remember that 1 and that 2 underneath the y and the x's are just representing 0.1 and 0.2. It's not part of the math. So the other endpoint where the spider would be located would be -1, and then +3 is where they're going to plot the spider.